and welcome to Foundation to Flourish's first webinar, Flourishing during Covid-19. This is a recording of a webinar that we did last week. Thank you for joining us. Tonight we have Stead and I am Tara Clark. And if you haven't heard of Foundations to Flourish before, it is a community wellbeing initiative that is based on King Island in Tasmania. And it's strengths-based, and it's really about empowering individuals and the community through education, awareness and practice of positive psychology. Nick and I both live on King Island and are very invested in the community. And I've got an education background, I'm a teacher, but Nick is a psychologist. And Nick, welcome. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Tara. My name is Nick Stead. I'm an organisational psychologist, which means that I help people live happy, healthy and productive lives in their workplaces. As Tara mentioned, I'm also a resident of King Island, so we own and operate Katowa Lodge, which is one of the luxury accommodation offerings on the island. So pleasure to be with you and thanks so much for joining us. In terms of some of the objectives for the session today, really why we developed this session is to provide everyone, the residents of the island, but also anyone else who is interested, with a really practical framework and some tips to help implement within our lives to live a flourishing life. And we feel this is particularly important during COVID-19 and some of the challenges that presents, but actually is equally important no matter what phase we are living in our lives or what context is happening around us. We've also produced this webinar as an opportunity to connect our community in a different way. So like many of us during COVID, we've been faced with challenges around connecting at a personal level physically. So we've produced this webinar as a way in which we can start a conversation amongst the community, connecting in more of a digital medium. And thirdly, the objective of this webinar is to give people a sense of hope and optimism for the future. In recent months, there's been a lot of press focusing on some of the negative aspects of the world which we currently find ourselves in. There's a whole range of really positive things which we can take away from this experience, and we'd like to focus on those today. So let's get started by having a little look at one of the models we'll be focusing on today, which is the BASE model, which comes from the world of cognitive psychology, as something to really give some practical advice around some tips and techniques which we can implement in our daily lives and our weekly routines. So we thought this is a framework which would hopefully resonate with a lot of people right now, given the kind of unique situation most of us have been in. But actually, equally, it's something which we can use kind of no matter what the context is in the world. So there's 4 key aspects when it comes to the BASE framework. And what we'll do is Tara and I will take turns to kind of share with you some thoughts around each of these. So the first is what's called body care. And what that really refers to is how do we taking care of ourselves and our bodies from a health and also a hygiene, and also just taking some time out for ourselves and looking after ourselves. So Tara's going to start telling us a little bit more around that. I'm then going to talk to you about the second component, which is achievement. So achievement is all about this notion that we feel at best when we feel like we're accomplishing something in life. And that's really small things kind of on a day-to-day basis, but can also be through to quite large kind of objectives which we set ourselves. So what are we accomplishing and what's our sense of achievement on a daily and weekly basis? Tara will then talk to us about the notion of connection, and connection is a really big one. And I think connection is something which a lot of us have been focusing on during this time because we haven't had the type of connection with people which maybe we have in the past. So how do we spend meaningful time with others, and why is that really important for humans? But connection is also about connecting with other people in our lives, which can also be our animals, but it's also about connecting with nature too. We'll talk a little bit around that. And then lastly, I'll talk a bit about this sense of enjoyment and why it's really important that on a daily basis, we try and have fun in life, and how can we ensure that we're having some type of enjoyment, no matter what the circumstances are around us. So there are 4 key aspects. If something stands out for you as we go through each of these, I'd really encourage you to just take a quick note of that, because what we're hoping is that by the end of this session, you may come out of this with 4 or 5 kind of ideas or tips, which you can really start implementing as of tomorrow. So Tara, let's get into it. I'd really love for us to start off talking about this notion of body care. So can you tell us a little bit more around what do we mean when we talk about body care?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we think about body care and physical health, we know that exercise and sleeping well and eating well is good for our physical health. But there are such strong links between physical health and mental health. And so by looking after your body, you're looking after your mental health and your well-being as well. So I'm just going to go through some basic things. And look, you probably already know this, but it does help to be reminded occasionally. And just some ideas about how you can build some extra self-care, body care into your routine to improve your mental and physical well-being. The first one is eat well. We know that what we put into our body will have consequences. So make sure that you're eating lots of fruit and veggies. I'm very guilty of when we were told to stay at home that I baked and baked and baked. But not every home needs to be a cake shop. And we can have a nice comfort food that we like, especially coming into winter, in moderation. So staying hydrated, avoiding sugary, caffeinated, alcoholic drinks, drinking lots of water, and making sure that what we put into our body are good choices. Secondly, sorry about that, guys. Secondly, we've got exercise. Now, we know that it's important to work out our body, and it's important that we don't beat ourselves up about this. So I'm not saying go out and start running tomorrow if you're not a runner. That's not your thing. I think what this COVID-19 pandemic has done for us is opened up a lot of opportunities for different ways to move our body and exercise. We know that a rigorous housekeeping or cleaning the house can be quite a good workout. There's heaps of online offerings in terms of Pilates classes and dance classes, yoga. So there are lots of different ways to exercise, and there's no point in trying to do something that you don't enjoy and that you can't see the benefits of, because you're not going to stick at it. And you can also use this physical exercise as a way of ticking another box, if you like. So if you're going for a walk, go for a family walk, or maybe take the kids and give them a scavenger hunt for them to be interested in along the way. Or maybe use it as an opportunity to just have some time to yourself, especially if you are in lockdown in a busy household. So exercise is really, really important. I don't need to tell you that, but it is important that this exercise and this physical body care links so closely to mental health. Sleep is really important. So the quality of sleep that you have really impacts on how you're feeling physically and mentally. And there's now emerging research that's saying that good quality sleep can actually increase mental resilience, which is something that's probably been tested over the last couple of months for a lot of us. And so that's a really good thing to know. So to promote good, healthy, quality sleep, you can make sure that you relax before you go to bed, avoid screens about an hour before you go to bed. And you might be tempted to stay up late reading or watching TV or something, but if you can have a regular bedtime, that can also help to promote a good night's sleep. Hygiene, we talk about brushing your hair and showering, and whilst if you don't have to get up and leave the house, you might be tempted to keep a shower and lounge around in pajamas all day. That's not a great habit to get into for your mental or physical health. So turn your bath into a beautiful self-care ritual. So turn your bathroom into a beautiful day spa, maybe with a scented candle and a book and some music or something like that. So there's real opportunity for you to look after yourself and your relationships through this body care as well. And of course, getting fresh air and sunshine when the sun's shining it does amazing things for your mood. So yeah, all of those things, I'm sure I'm preaching to the converted. There are lots and lots of tips there. Doesn't mean you have to go out and try them all tomorrow, but perhaps you might like to just set a short goal of drinking more water for the next week or something like that, and just notice what it does to your body and consequently your mental health. But speaking of setting goals, this is a really important part, or that experiencing that sense of accomplishment. It's a really important element of the base model, Nick, isn't it? Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, definitely. The element which, Taris has been talking about, body care, is something which I guess we probably hear quite a lot about, but something we often don't consider as deeply is this notion around achievement. So what we know through a whole body of research is that when we feel good about ourselves is often when we are doing something which gives us a sense of accomplishment or achievement. So that's why it's really important on a daily and a weekly basis to be having this sense of what have I done which I feel good about, that I've been able to, for instance, tick off my list. And for different people, that can look really different. So I'd encourage you to write a quick list and think about what are the things when I do them, I get a great sense of accomplishment, and can I integrate more of those things into my life and into my day? And the key thing here is it doesn't really matter how big or small they are. It's just that every day I feel like I've done something to be successful and have achieved something for the day. So for instance, for some people, that could be around kind of baking and creating food and feeding myself and my family. For others, it can be around household tasks. Some people gain a massive sense of accomplishment and achievement from having a squeaky clean bathroom, for instance. Sounds hilarious, but for some people it does. So if that's what gives you a sense of accomplishment, then do it. For other people, there could be other things, such as maybe gardening and growing some vegetables and pulling out weeds may assist. Or for others, it could be learning a new skill. So an example could be learning a new song if you play a musical instrument, for instance. So thinking about what gives you a sense of accomplishment and then trying to build in some of those activities every day. Another thing which can give us a sense of accomplishment is not necessarily things which we enjoy. We actually may really dislike them, but once we get them done, we feel so much better about getting them done. So some examples for myself, but probably for other people I'd say as well, is maybe the monthly invoicing and doing all the paperwork isn't necessarily something I enjoy doing, but once it's done, I feel a hell of a lot better that it has been done and ticked off. Or likewise, maybe doing your tax return, which will be coming up for a lot of us. So all those types of things, having a list of what needs to get done and then just doing one of them, even if it's just cleaning out a small cupboard for the day, anything like that can give us a huge sense of accomplishment, which has been shown over and over to have a really positive effect on our mental health. The other thing to kind of just consider here is to really be, I guess, kind to yourself. So there's been examples, particularly during COVID, of people saying, great, I've got some more time at home. I'm going to, renovate the house, or I'm going to repaint it all, or I'm going to learn a new language. And they're great goals. And if you do them, I'm sure they'll give you a great sense of accomplishment. And if you feel up to it, then go for it for sure. But don't feel like when we're talking about achievement and accomplishment, it has to be something that big. It can really be small daily tasks, which are really important to get done, but also make you feel really good once you do them. So the key tip here is think about what are the things which give you a sense of accomplishment, write a list of them, and then try to do one of them each day, even if it's only a 10-minute task. So that's a really important one. It's backed up by a lot of research. The other one, all these are important, but I guess the other one which we're hearing a lot about at the moment, Tara, is around connection, because during COVID, we've really had to question how we connect with people and really looking at alternate mechanisms to do that. So can you tell us a little bit more around connection and why that's just so important?
Yeah, absolutely. So I really believe that we will emerge from this COVID-19 pandemic experience wiser and more mindful. And I do wonder what the legacy will be. What will be our takeaway? What will be what we've learned from this experience? And one thing I hear a lot is the talk about social distancing. It makes me cringe. Social and distancing are two words that should not be put together. And actually, even the World Health Organization acknowledged that and changed the term to physical distancing, which is far more appropriate for what we are being given guidelines to adhere to at the moment. Because social connection is fundamental for people. We are very social beings and we need to connect, we need to socialise to survive. It's not a luxury, it's something that we need. And so what COVID-19 has done for us is presented a challenge of how we connect with people. And there are some really creative and fun ways that people are reaching out to each other and connecting, and who they're connecting with too. So the platforms that are available to us, social media, video conferencing, letters still, phone calls, emails, lots of different ways that we can connect with the people that we usually would connect with, but also people that we might not have spoken to or communicated with for a long time. These platforms are ways to reach out to people to just sort of get back in touch with people. But they also allow us to check in with people who are probably a bit lonelier than others through periods of isolation. So perhaps seniors or people that live on their own. It's a really good opportunity for us to reach out and see if those people need anything, or just to say hi, we're thinking of you. And during this time, it is absolutely understandable and normal to be feeling anxious and fearful, uncomfortable, scared, and for those feelings to change on a daily basis. So it's really important that we do reach out and we get the help that we need, a trusted friend or a trusted support person who can provide the support and the connection that we need through this time. Kindness has been another vehicle that a lot of people have used to create connection. We've had the very well publicised Spreading Kindness farmer on King Island who has shared kind words and treats throughout the King Island community. And so that's been a really lovely way of just committing random acts of kindness. It might just be something really small, but it could have a really profound effect to someone's day and really positively impact how they're feeling. So kindness is another way that we can connect with people. You also might connect in ways that you haven't done before through a common interest. So perhaps an online book club, or a forum that discusses a Netflix documentary or something like that. So it could be a way of connecting with different people and sort of widening your network. Another way that I think is really important, given that a lot of us have a little bit more time at home and a little bit more time to reflect, would be to express gratitude and connect that way. So maybe write a letter or a card to someone that you're particularly grateful for because they've had some kind of positive impact on your life. And it might be, people that you plan to write to them, you plan to thank them, you have never got around to it. So now is a really good opportunity to use gratitude too, to connect with people. But connection doesn't just have to be outward facing, I guess. This is a really good opportunity to connect with ourselves too, and check in with ourselves and see how we're feeling, and maybe be grateful in a more introspective way. Nick, you were talking about that a little bit earlier with me. Can you talk more to that, about that being grateful?
Yeah, for sure. So showing gratitude towards others is incredibly powerful. So writing a letter of gratitude or thanking someone for something, but also just practicing gratitude yourself. So a lot of research, once again, from the world of positive psychology and cognitive psychology over recent decades, showing the simple act of every evening, just spending a few moments with yourself and thinking and ideally writing down on paper the 3 or the 5 things which you're grateful for during the day has a really positive effect on your neurochemistry in your head. So the releasing of endorphins and feel-good chemicals. So it really helps you focus on the positive things which came out of the day rather than perhaps some of the things which weren't as positive. So they don't have to be massive things. So even at night, just sitting down and thinking, I'm really grateful that the sun came out for those 5 minutes and helped warm up the house. That was lovely. Or I'm really grateful that I got 5 minutes to myself to sit down uninterrupted and have a hot cup of tea. Through to maybe much more significant things, which you may be grateful if something went really, really well for you during the day as well. So I think, Tara, it's in addition to kind of telling other people what you're grateful for, it's also just thinking and ideally writing down in just a piece of paper or a journal what you're grateful for. So, Tara, there's been a range of things around connection. Connection is such an important part in terms of positive psychology for humans. We've talked about gratitude there. We've talked about kindness. We've talked about connecting with different people in different ways through different channels, not just face to face. If you were to summarize this kind of theme around connection, what would be your kind of top tip?
I think just connect every day. Connect every day. Even if you have to write on your list of things to do, these are the 2 people I'm going to, call this person, an old primary school friend, and I'm going to call my mum. It's really important to do. So that's probably my number 1 tip. And I think it's worth mentioning that connecting with people makes you feel good. It makes you feel good and it makes them feel good, as does committing acts of kindness and expressing gratitude. And so it's something that you should do because it's enjoyable as well. So, Nick, enjoyment is one of the elements of the BASE framework. Could you talk to us about how important it is, especially during the pandemic?
Definitely. So this is the final aspect of the 4 different throngs, if you like, within this framework. And enjoyment's so critical that from a positive psychology perspective, we want to and need to be doing something every day which makes us feel good, makes us feel good about ourselves, makes us feel good about our community, makes us feel good about the world. And the trick here is to make sure that every day you build in something which makes you feel good. And sometimes when times are tough, when we're maybe not feeling as positive naturally, or maybe when we're just really busy, we kind of neglect just to have fun. And having fun is really critical for us to feel good, both over the short and the long term. So when we're talking about having fun, that could be a whole range of different things because it's so subjective. For some people, it's about a particular hobby. For others, could be dancing, could be playing games or doing puzzles. It could be reading, could be watching something on Netflix or a good drama or a movie. So it'll be a whole range of different things. So it doesn't really matter what it is, so long as it's healthy and it makes you feel good. During COVID, it's been great to see some people pick back up hobbies. So maybe something which they had done in the past and they'd let go of just because life kind of got in the way and they were too busy. They found a bit of time during the last couple of months, so they've taken that back up. For others, I've heard a lot of examples on the island of people really getting back into gardening, for instance. So I think there's an aspect there around trying to kind of nurture and feed ourselves, but also just kind of connecting with nature and also doing something which inherently makes us feel really good. So there's some great examples there. I think for other people, if they didn't have a previous hobby, which they want to pick back up, thinking about actually a new hobby and something new which you want to add to your life, which maybe has been something you've considered for a long time, but just kind of never got around to it. So great opportunity to also think about, what have I always wanted to do, but I've just never created space? And should I now use this kind of point in time as a bit of a new fresh start and say, I'm going to prioritize this. I'm going to create some space in my life for some of the things which I really want to do. The other thing I'd say around these aspects of enjoyment in our lives is be creative. So to share a personal example, probably one of the things which gives me the greatest enjoyment in life is travel. So every year we try and do at least kind of one really great domestic trip or an international trip. And obviously no one's traveling at the moment. And so for me, that's actually been quite hard. But that doesn't mean that I can't be thinking about travel at the moment. So I've found myself over the last couple of months actually getting out the old photo albums from previous adventures and trips and looking through those, and actually not just by myself, but sharing that with my partner who was also there with me on those trips, and also sharing with our son trips which we did before he was even born. So that's been really kind of full of joy for me. And likewise, what I've been doing is I've been thinking about future holidays. So I've been starting to research, read travel blogs, look through brochures and think about a future holiday. So thinking about enjoyment in terms of activities I can do right now, but also thinking about, are there things which I can reminisce on, which make me feel really good, or are there things which I can plan for the future, which also make me feel really good too. So Tara, we've covered the 4 areas, but I thought it might be useful for us to do a really quick summary around what they're all about. And I really encourage you as we go through each of these, if you haven't already, to think about what was maybe the one key thing I took from each of those 4 categories in terms of what I could maybe implement in my life. So in terms of what they were, the first was body care. So Tara spoke a bit there around looking after ourselves, both in terms of our physical health, such as things like exercise, the importance of building that into our routines, around sleep. We also spoke around kind of just looking after ourselves from a hygiene perspective, but not just showering for the sake of showering or taking a bath for the sake of having a bath, but actually turning that into an enjoyable experience too, and actually really being really mindful in the moment, rather than just treating it as a chore through our lives. So what can we do to really harness ourselves in terms of looking after our physical, mental self? I spoke a little bit around achievement and this sense of accomplishment, and how as humans we have this innate need every day to feel like we've done something which is good, that we've ticked something off our list. And that can be something really small, as I mentioned, like cleaning out a cupboard, through to something really big, such as kind of completing, if you're studying an essay, for instance, or completing a degree or something like that. But really the trick here is just thinking about what are the things for you which give you a sense of accomplishment, and making sure once again that an aspect of that is built into your day. And if you are working on something which is quite large in terms of a future goal, then just really breaking that down. So every day I'm just doing something little, which is kind of moving towards that goal of the future. We spend quite a lot of time talking about connection because it's a really important aspect to make us feel good in our lives. And particularly during COVID, that's been of critical importance. But we've also seen some amazing ways in which people are connecting in different ways than before and being creative about that. So thinking about connecting with people who are really important to me, and I want to keep those connections close, but also maybe reaching out to people who I haven't spoken to for a long time, or expanding my network of connection. Also thinking about connection from a gratitude perspective. So thanking other people and telling them what I'm grateful for, but also doing that internally and being grateful, thinking about it on a daily basis. What am I grateful for? What was really good and positive about the day? Because we know that has great effects on our neurochemistry. And finally, we spoke about having fun. We spoke about trying to build some part of enjoyment into our day every day, and making sure that life isn't all about ticking things off lists. It's also about doing things which are joyous, and whatever they are for you, just taking some time every day to yourself, or looking for activities with your partner or your family, which all of you feel are joyous, and doing those together. And something which we hadn't spoken about yet, but that really triggers it for me, is that these things are really interconnected. So doing something which is really fun for you, maybe like playing the guitar, if you do that with someone else, it's also a connection. And if you try and learn a new piece of music together, then it's also probably likely to give you a sense of achievement too. And maybe if you do it in the bath while you're having a clean, then you're also going to look after your body. So thinking about what are the tick, 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 tick. So what are the things which actually give you multiple aspects of these all in one? So if I was to summarize some of the key things which I took away across all of them, the most important thing is to build it into routine. So there's so much research to say that just start it. And if you get it going, once you do it for a few weeks, then you're much more likely to keep it going. So just build into routine and get started. Secondly, kindness and gratitude are amazing things to teach yourself, but also to teach others. So think about how you can build kindness and gratitude into your day or into your week. And also the final thing I would say is using this period of time for reflection. So what I mean by that is COVID has been an interesting time for everyone. And a lot of people have learnt things which maybe they hadn't really taken time to think about before. So maybe now is a great time to think about, what have I really enjoyed about this time? What have I not enjoyed? What do I want to take forward? And what do I want to leave behind? And that's both for me personally and my family, but also thinking about what does that mean in terms of what I've learned about our community and what I can take forward for our community, or what I can leave behind if I don't think that it's working. Tara, interested in your reflections, and also we encourage some questions from anyone during the session too. So if there's any questions, maybe we can take a couple of those.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, look, Nick, everything you've said is very important, of course. And I think you could quite possibly be feeling a little bit overwhelmed with the advice that we've provided. And I must say that the advice and the research that we talk about is quite generic. Doesn't take individual circumstances into account. So please don't feel, if it doesn't feel right with you, if it doesn't gel or resonate with you, please don't act on it. And if you are struggling and you need extra support, Beyond Blue and Lifeline are excellent services that you can get in contact with. What I would say is that there might be a whole heap of, I hope there are lots of great ideas that you got from this webinar. Don't try and do them all at once. You'll be setting yourself up to fail. So just as Nick said, with achievement, make them small, achievable, realistic goals and ways that think about how they're going to fit into your routine. Don't necessarily change your routine to fit in with all these new interventions. Just have a look at what realistically you can build into your day to have a positive impact. And if these interventions can tick more than one box or address more than one element in the SPACE framework that we've just used today as an example, then that's fabulous. So keep it simple, I would say. Just keep it really simple. And I think also, just on reflecting on this whole webinar, very easy when we are challenged, as we all have been in varied ways throughout this pandemic and throughout life in general, I guess, to focus on what we're missing and what we don't have. We can get bogged down with that, especially when there are restrictions placed on us. All of a sudden we miss the thing that we're not allowed to do. But if we can shift our thinking to be focusing on what we do have, more time at home, more time with family, perhaps more time to revisit old hobbies or, whatever that Nick was talking about, then maybe we could focus on the good that's coming out of that than what we're missing out on and what we wish that could be happening differently. So, so I think that's for me a take home. And as I said earlier, I really believe that we will emerge from this wiser and more mindful. And this, I encourage you to think about what our legacy might be, personally, for our family and maybe for our community. What are we going to take from this and take into the future? I do have a question here. Lots of information where do I start? Nick, to come away from this, where's the starting point for this?
Starting point is just to pick one. So if there was just one thing which resonated, if there was just one idea from any of these categories, I would just pick one. I would break it down into something which is really small, and I would just build it in to my day in some way. So to give you a really practical example, I used to exercise a lot. I found it really good, and then life got in the way. I got really busy and I gave it up. So just during COVID, I thought I want to start exercise again. So I downloaded an app. It's the Johnson & Johnson app, workout app. It's called the 7-minute workout. And literally the workout is 7 minutes. So just to start building exercise back into my day, it's a 7-minute workout. And I try and do that 4 times a week. That's where I started. And now I'm up to doing that, multiple times more for multiple lengths more. So just pick one thing, break it down to a really small piece, and just implement it into one day or even one day within a week would be my piece of advice on that.
Yeah, great. We've got another question here about setting goals and shifting the goalposts. And I think it's asking about with restrictions that are placed on us and how it's changing from week to week and also day to day. How do we set goals? How do we control what's going on when all these things are being changed? Do you want to talk to that, Nick?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to be really mindful that you can only change or you can only control what's within your realm of control. So whenever we try and control things which actually we can't, then we set ourselves up for failure. So we can't control rules which are placed upon us. We certainly can't control other people. Even people who are really, really close to us, we can't control. So just control what you can for yourself. Setting goals is really important, as we talked about, from an accomplishment perspective. But what I would say is you also have to have some type of flexibility within that. So life changes, things get in the way, things come up, different events happen. So it's important to set goals, but it's also really important to be flexible within those. And when things don't go according to plan, it's about being kind to yourself as well. And sometimes you kind of fall off the wagon, or sometimes you didn't quite get where you wanted to go. And that's kind of okay. The most important thing is that you just take a little bit of time to reflect on that. You set a new goal and off you go again. And that's why when we talk about accomplishment, it's just about doing little things all the time. Because when you start little, then you create momentum. And when you create momentum, that's when you'll have the confidence and the capability to do bigger things. So I'd say that one, Tara.
Yeah, thank you. We've had another one. What have you enjoyed about times of COVID-19? So I might start with this one, if you don't mind, Nick. For me, time to breathe, I think, and just really simplify. In the early days of lockdown, it was, all of a sudden the things that I identified with, my job and my friends, were all sort of gone. And so to really get back to basics, spend time with my children, spend time in the garden, bake. I feel like a bit of a COVID-19 cliche, actually, but to be able to just really strip back and reflect on what is important and thinking, I'm actually okay. I'm okay without all of these things that I thought I needed to be happy and survive and flourish. And don't get me wrong, it has been incredibly challenging. I'm counting down the hours until school goes back to our beautiful teachers, I must say. But I think I really feel like I've been given a gift and an opportunity to really reflect and slow down. So yeah, for me, just get back to basics. I think that's been something that I've really enjoyed about this whole experience. What about you, Nick?
In some ways, a little bit similar but different. So both myself and my partner have jobs here on the island in terms of running our business here, but also we have other jobs which we do remotely. So it's been really hard in terms of our business closing down with no tourists on the island. But in terms of that notion we were just talking about, focusing on what you can control, we can't control that. We can only focus on what we can control. And what we can control is using that now time we have for other pursuits. So it's kind of similar to you, Tara, really connecting with the family in a bit of a different way. And for me, as someone reasonably new to the island, only being here 8 months, our first 6 months here were incredibly busy, working 7 days a week. So I've actually just been really grateful to have a break and to spend some time on the island, on our own property, and just kind of discovering the island in some ways, because we just hadn't had the chance to do that yet. So that's what I really enjoyed. And I've read or watched an amazing podcast. And one of the people who were talking about that, they spoke about the notion of FOMO, which I'm sure we've all heard of, the fear of missing out. And they said how right now is a great time to think about JOMO, the joy of missing out. So thinking about what are all those things which used to be in my life that actually I didn't really enjoy. So for some people, they may be like aspects of work, for instance, they could be the commute, things like that, which actually during COVID you haven't had to engage in, and just being really thankful and focusing on all the really good things and not necessarily some things you're missing out on.
Yeah, definitely worth thinking about. Absolutely. Well, I think we might stop that there. If there are any other questions or comments that you would like to share with us, please do post them on our Facebook page. If you'd like to engage with Foundations to Flourish and keep updated with what we're doing, because we're always doing something fun and exciting, please follow us on Facebook or Instagram, or you can contact us on email, foundationstoflourish@gmail.com, and that's a number 2, not the word 2, Foundations to Flourish. But I would like to thank Helen, our tech head. Again, thank you very much for helping us out. And thank you so much to you, Nick. I'm really excited that we have you on our team. And also thank you so much to all of you out there and wherever you are in your homes, for joining us and giving us your time. We really hope that you got something out of this, and we look forward to the next time that we see you, whether it be face to face or at a screen. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
And thank you, Tara, and likewise thanks to everyone. Have a good evening.